We are here today to talk about how to start and grow an English tutoring business in Israel. This is what I'm doing right now. I work only part-time because I'm a mom and I want to spend more time with my kids. But if you're thinking about teaching in English in Israel, what I'm going to be talking about in this presentation is people that want to teach Hebrew-speaking students English. Obviously, you're going to need to have an excellent level of English. That doesn't even mean just being a native speaker or being a native speaker. It just means you have an excellent grasp of the language, your personality. Working with kids, you need to be patient, creative, kind, but also be able to have boundaries. It's not good to be a pushover when you're dealing with kids that are in your classroom. I teach from my home, so if you're going to do the model like I'm doing, you won't have to pay rent, so that for like an office space, so that makes it really good, but you need to have a place that you can use. I use my kitchen table, I just clean it off. This is my background that kids see when they walk in. And you do not need to be fluent in Hebrew, but if you have some Hebrew, it will help you when you communicate with the parents. I do all of my lessons completely in English. So from the time they walk in, and I'll talk about this later, the first lesson, how I explain to them so that they're not terrified walking in and I'm just talking to them and they don't know what's going on. But you can do the lessons all in English. I text the parents only in English because it comes off way more professional than me texting them with typos in Hebrew. I'm working on improving my Hebrew writing, but it's not that amazing right now. You should be able to be organized because you'll have hopefully a lot of students and a lot of parents, and you need to be able to keep track of what's going on, who's paid, when their schedules are. And in terms of payments, you should have Bit and Paybox. If you don't have them, get them. WhatsApp, all of my communications with my parents are on WhatsApp. There's not even one that's not using WhatsApp. So you need to have that if you don't already. Okay. Who am I? Just so y'all know what I'm talking about. So I've been in Israel for 7 years. Right now, I live close to Afula. I have a bachelor's degree in music from the US, a master's in tourism from here in Israel, and a teaching in English certification that I got online. So even if you don't have a teaching in English certification, like an ESL kind of certification, you could get one or you could teach without it. Parents asked me about my qualifications the very first students that I got with this method, but once it went to word of mouth, which was after the first week or so that I started teaching, then nobody cared about my qualifications. So I tried, after I taught English online for 6 months before I started my own business. I was working for VIP Kid and they like fired all their foreign teachers, and so I was like, what am I going to do? I started applying for jobs. People were offering 45 shekels an hour and I was like, are you kidding me? I'm not a teenager. When you teach privately, you can earn way more than that. Then I made my own curriculum and tried getting students. It was like a grammar-based curriculum, and I spent months working on it, and it was not a success. Kids' eyes glaze over when they see grammar charts. It didn't work. And also, I wasn't good at marketing at that time. So I also then worked for an after-school English learning center that did English based on games. I did also a music groups thing there where I did like 10 kids at a time. And I worked in an Arabic speaking school for 1 semester, which I learned through that I do not want to work in a school. The kids are really sweet, but the environment is chaos. And I just didn't see myself doing that long term. Then I completely changed the way that I teach. And so what I'm going to show you guys is what I changed to. And that was 2 years ago. And now I have way more students than I can possibly take. I'm turning families away. And it's really sad because they need help and I want to help them, but I don't have time. There are hundreds of kids in my area, and I have only like 14 hours that I'm willing to work teaching English a week. So hopefully, if you guys can copy what I'm doing, you'll skip all of the extra wasted time. Today, we're going to go over my lesson structure, how I decide what I'm going to teach, where I get my ideas, books that I use, and where I got them from, how I got the students that I started with, and how I keep on getting referrals, what I say on the phone whenever I'm talking to potential clients. And then after you have students doing cancellations and no-shows, how do I do that? And the very first lesson that I ever do with kids, I'll give you a hint, I make slime with them. And this is something, the way that I do my first lesson, I have a really high return rate, and I think that's important too. A little bit, I'm going to touch on the legal side of the business. I'll give you some tips of where to get more help because I'm not an expert, but you have to like go through the legal steps of opening your ESIC, patol, or whatever you're going to do, parent communication, and then a list of books and supplies that you would need to start. This type of a business is really rewarding because students actually learn, and it's so exciting to see the progress going from, I've had kids that walked in here less than 2 years ago did not understand a single word that I said, and now we're having full conversations. They can read. It's so exciting. Obviously, kids learn at their own paces, but this is a strategy that works. You get to set your own schedule, do topics that you enjoy. You don't need a teaching license in Israel. You don't have to drive. The students usually come excited. The ones who don't will quit soon. So that's the nice thing. And your parents that you have, my parents are super excited. They love what I'm doing. And you also get paid really well per hour that you're willing to work. The more hours that you work, the more you'll get paid, obviously. The negative side, you have to send receipts all the time because I take payments after every lesson. You could choose to do it differently, but that's how I do it. Because I teach out of my home, I don't have to drive, but then I do have to keep my house clean and go, okay, now I need to go keep all the dishes washed constantly. If you teach groups, sometimes it's harder to keep them focused, depends on the group. That can be stressful. So you may just decide if it's too much, do only private lessons. And if you get the occasional parent that doesn't pay on time, or if you, God forbid, need to fire a student because they just cannot behave no matter what you've done, then sometimes parents are not really a fan of that. They don't like their kids getting fired. So those are the negatives. Okay, so what is it that I'm teaching that you guys could copy? Like I said, before I started this method of doing it, I did grammar-based lessons, and kids' eyes would just glaze over. They put their head down on the table. They're like, "Oh, I'm tired. I'm gonna fall asleep." It's not natural, and it doesn't. For me, it was not effective compared to like teaching a kid that my son, he's 2.5 and he speaks English. Like, what's the difference? Why are we teaching grammar-based? I stopped doing it. So I went to activity-based lessons because I think it's a better match for natural language learning. When a baby is born, no one pulls out a chart of grammar and starts trying to make them memorize it. You interact with them. That's how you learn language in a natural environment. And this way, kids will learn simultaneously the grammar, the vocabulary, and even some of the culture. And they do it through curiosity. So what I'm doing is curiosity-inspired learning. In every lesson, what I promise parents, I'm going to have your student listen because I'm going to speak in complete sentences only in English for the whole lesson. They're going to also speak, so I'll prompt them when they want to say something. I'll help them to pronounce it and get the whole sentence out. They'll do reading in every lesson, even when they start from not knowing anything, and they do some writing. So those are the four things that I make sure I build into every lesson, regardless of what the subject exactly is or the activity. So here is an example schedule of what I'm doing right now over the next couple of months. So I didn't put dates or anything because holidays come up and things get canceled. So I just do with every single student or group the whole week that I'm teaching. Like 2 weeks ago, I did bees and we made these little, I downloaded a chart for 15 shekels and we made a craft of bees. But doing the activity, the whole thing, now you need to cut this out. Now draw a line. And I need to ask for help. Can you help me? So all of the interaction is in English, and that's where the learning comes in. Then I have a book, a little book about bees. So either I read it to them, and because I do speak enough Hebrew, I could explain a little bit if I needed to. Or if they were a higher level, they had to read the book. The further advanced they are in the language, the more I will push them. So the more advanced students, they read it and then I asked them questions about it. And then, did you know that? What do you think about that? So it's the same material, but depending on their level, I'll use my own judgment as far as how to do that. Then for the writing assignment, I made them copy stuff out of the book. So I don't need to make something up. I can give them that. I'll show you guys in a minute too. For my very beginning students, my writing assignments were different because I have a book that teaches phonics and it uses just letters. So the way I structure it, I just use this chart that I make up. I do it in Canva and I make it once every quarter. So once a month is basically focused on reading. So the Busy Bees is a reading one, the Magic School Bus is a reading one, and the Little Engine That Could. Those are intensive reading lessons. So it's all about the story, it's about writing. That one, I'm telling the kids, look, we do a lot of fun things in this class. This week we're going to focus and work hard. Then the next week is going to be something about science each month. So I did catapults made out of popsicle sticks. I found that on Pinterest. Marshmallows, making that into some construction. And I'll show you guys a book that I have where I get ideas that you guys could buy also. Experiments in resisting motion. And then the next thing I do, I have recipes. Everybody probably has recipe books or you can find things online. Stuff that you're interested in. You don't have to do recipes, but you kind of just need to get a concept What am I good at? What do I love that I can share with these students? Because what's important is the excitement and the curiosity. It's not necessarily as important if you don't like cooking, don't do it. My kids actually asked for this, which is why I started doing lessons in how to bake cakes, and they're like, I'm actually learning how to cook thanks to you. So it's exciting. When we do recipes, I print the recipe out in English or I'll write it by hand and they'll read it, they'll do it. It's really, really good. It's just, and then they get to take the thing home and their parents love it. I don't do recipes all the time, even though the students would like to do it every week because those lessons require more expensive input, like ingredients. Also, I have a budget of 10 shekels per student per lesson. That's what I put into supplies. Now, the ones that are baking lessons will cost me sometimes 15 shekels, but like the one with the bees was 15 shekels plus paper for the entire thing for all of my students for the week. So it kind of averages out to around 10 shekels. And then the last thing that I'm doing each month is a craft. Again, it doesn't have to be the same for you guys, but this is how I just make up my lessons. At first, I was not planning far in advance, and I found out that that was not good because it stressed me out. You need to plan far enough in advance that you have time to buy the supplies and make sure everything is there. And if it comes to a week and you're like, oh man, I forgot that, you can always skip and go to the next week's craft or whatever and do it. Right. Where do I get my lesson ideas? So, like I said, I do one science lesson a month. I get it from a book called 365 Science Experiments by Usborne Publishers. Most of the time, unless it's just something that I thought, hey, we should do this. Like one week, I was like, let's throw eggs off the roof. So they were like, what? So I built cartons with them. Whatever is in your mind, stuff that you did as a kid that you loved, do it with your students. They're going to remember the English, you know. Plus, they're learning more than just English. Then I do a baking or cooking lesson. I do a craft lesson, mostly from Pinterest, but other places too, and then one intensive lesson. If I need an extra lesson for the week, because I have a bachelor's in music, I have a piano right over here, I teach them piano. It's fun. You can do whatever you love, whatever it is that you like doing, or you can add an extra reading lesson. It doesn't matter, but I do try to keep everybody on the same schedule because that way it's easier for me to buy supplies. And if there's a holiday on Wednesday, those kids just miss that lesson. But sometimes I'll give them the option the next week. Okay, do you want to do the craft from last week or the baking thing from this week? So I buy my books from awesomebooks.com in the UK. I found that they have reliable shipping to Israel and decent prices. You'll pay probably the same amount for the shipping as you pay for the book, but if you just do a filter by whatever price you're willing to pay, you can find a ton of stuff for really cheap. It's sort of like a half price books, but from the UK. For beginning readers of any age, this is my book that I use for reading. I don't know if y'all can see this. I'll show you at the end. How Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons. This book has 100 lessons. I do at least one each week with my beginning readers. I didn't have that in the beginning, and it's made a huge difference since I've gotten it because it just goes from the very basics and it starts and it's repetitive and they build on what they've learned. Before I had that, I still was able to get kids to read just by picking up a book with them and going letter by letter and going over the phonics. Another thing that I have for my beginning readers is tracing pages, which I put into these protective sheets. I printed them out and I have like 6 of these books so that I can have enough for all the students and add dry erase markers. I had this from the very first week I started teaching and it has been very useful because you can use it a million times. Um, so that's what I got off of Canva. So if you guys want to go download that, it's on there. Okay. Whether you have a huge library of books or you have very little, you can start with what you had, what you have. So I didn't have a library of books, which like I do now when I started only 2 years ago. So I used flashcards, my toddler's books, recipes that I wrote by hand or printed, the tracing sheets from Canva. You can start teaching because I told the parents, look, I'm just getting started with this method. So I'm going to be ordering books soon for your kids' level. And I ordered stuff that I thought was appropriate for those particular students. And parents understand. And then once you get the books, you can start using them. And so how I do my book purchasing, if I have extra money at the end of the month based on what my income has been versus my expenses. If I haven't gotten to 10% expenditures for that month, then I'll take the extra and go on Awesome Books and buy books and have them sent over here. So that's how I do it. And just the more that you earn money, you can get more supplies, and eventually you'll have a giant library. So now I need another bookshelf. So my scheduling, I've been using Excel, but I don't know if I would recommend that because it's more, you have to recreate every single month. I'll just show you quickly what I've been doing. Before I ever scheduled any students, I set up a calendar. I put blue, no, green was empty classes that I was willing to fill. And then once they were filled, I switched them to blue. And what I've been doing is the beginning of the month, everybody's name is black. Every time somebody comes to a lesson, I change their name to white. And if they don't come, I cross it out and it's strike through. This is probably, like I said, not the most efficient way of doing it. So I'll show you guys what my sister showed me today, which is, how do I get this to move? Okay. If you guys can see this, can somebody unmute yourself and tell me if you can still see my screen?
We still
Yeah.
see
Yeah,
it.
we can see it.
Perfect. Okay. So my sister is starting a business in Colorado, and she said you need to show them Google Calendars because you can do appointments on there and parents can actually schedule themselves. The reason why I started using Excel is because I tried using Calendly, which schedules with your Google Calendar, and I didn't know that you could do it directly through Google. And parents could not figure it out because their English is not good enough sometimes. They were like, that's too complicated. Everything was in English. I couldn't do it. So I just forgot about it. Here on calendar.google.com, if you click on the create button right over here and go down to appointment schedule, you click on that and you can start. I don't think it'll let me do it because I've already done it. Let me see. No, it's not gonna let me because I already did it. Okay, but you can create one appointment schedule, and I've already done it earlier today, so it's not letting me do it. Let's see here. Preview. This will show you what I set up. You go through the process over there. If you can't figure it out, go type it in Google because I'm sorry I can't show you right now. But you can set up appointment hours. I do my lessons 50 minutes long, and then I get a 10-minute break in between to reset the classroom, get a drink, use the bathroom. So my appointments always start right on the hour. I start at 3 o'clock because I'm teaching school kids, and they usually won't come before then, except sometimes on Thursdays they will. I'm not teaching at all on Mondays or Sundays yet, because for now I just want to keep it to those hours that I have. Um, so I teach from 3 to 6 on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and on Friday morning I start at 9 and go through my last appointment starts at 12, so I'm done by 1. So that's my schedule right now. If I was going to start from scratch, I would probably figure this out and not work with Excel because I think it would be a lot more easy just to have it everything synced so that if you have another appointment, you're going to go to the doctor, whatever, it's all in one calendar and it automatically does the calendar itself each month, unlike what I'm doing in Excel where I have to put the dates in by myself every month. So that's my advice. Go figure out how to use the Google Calendar for your scheduling because you can also send a link, my sister told me, to the clients and they can do their own scheduling and choose. So that's what I'm doing, and that's what my sister's doing. You guys can figure out what works for you. What do I charge? So again, all of my lessons are 50 minutes. I start on the hour. So private lesson, I charge 125. I live not in one of the big cities, so I don't know how much you would charge where you live, but my husband did market research for me, and he was like, "This is what you should take." Before I moved to this neighborhood, I felt like terrible about charging a lot of money, and for me that was a lot. So I was taking 60, but it wasn't working as well. So the price is not the issue. Parents do not complain. I've had like 1 out of 50 parents say that 125 was a little much, but she's willing to pay 90 for a group. Anyway, don't worry about the price. It's about your quality of teaching. Double student closed lessons, I do 90 shekels per student, so I get 180 for the lesson and groups of 3 to 5 students, that's where I decide who's going to be in the group, or 65 per student is what I charge. Now, I think it's nice for some families to have the option to do a group because I've had 3 students from the same family and it makes it more doable for them that they're paying 195 a week for different kids in all the different groups that I have. Groups are more stressful by a lot. So I do have one group right now that's fantastic. There's a brother and a sister that have been in there for a while, and they kind of set the tone. But I don't like having boys all of the same age in one group because they just talk to each other about, did you see Messi or the football games that they've watched, and it doesn't end up going as well. But if you have mixed groups of boys and girls together, those work better. and groups with siblings in them have worked super, super well. So depending on what you're willing to do. Now, keep in mind you can earn a lot more because if you have room at your table for 5 students and you have the patience and you can actually get them to focus, you can earn a lot more than teaching a private lesson. The other advantage of groups is that when a student cancels, one student or maybe 2 students will cancel, but it's very unlikely that all of them will cancel and you're going to be stuck with an empty block on that week. So I still like private lessons better because the students work they're a lot more focused. I've had kids that could not concentrate even with 2 kids in a group going to a private lesson and suddenly they become the best student in the world. So for the kids benefit and for my sanity, private lessons are the best. Financially, they're not as good because when the student cancels, you just have an empty spot. You can reschedule, but it's harder to schedule someone for a single lesson. Most parents want something that's ongoing. So if you just say, I have an opening this week, they're like, well, let me know when you have an available slot that's every week. So I take payments after every lesson on Bit, Paybox, or in cash. If you use Bit and Paybox, they hold your money inside the app. So whenever you get it to an amount of money that you want to send to your bank account, you can do that. And that way you won't get a lot of recurring charges on your bank account for a lot of interaction transactions. You have to accept the money within 3 days or they have to redo it. I find that out the hard way. I send a receipt after every single payment that I get, and that is annoying, but it's according to the law that you're supposed to do that. But I have now switched to iCount for my accounting. That's a website that has an app, and that has made my life so much easier. So I open up my phone, accept the payment, switch to the iCount app, send the receipt on there, go back to the next payment. So that's how I do it now. Makes it much less of a headache. All right. So how did I get students? This is the thing. It doesn't matter how amazing your teaching is or what kind of a personality. It doesn't matter if you can't get your students in the door. The first students that come in, you're going to have to figure it out. So how did I do it this time? So in the past, I've sent out flyers, I've posted stuff all over the place, and I got some students. Now, if I would have done that while I was using this teaching method, then those some students would have led to more referrals. But because I was doing bad marketing and boring teaching, it was not a winning combination. This time around, my husband became a video editor in the last couple of years, and so he wrote me a script in Hebrew based on Tzvika Einav's marketing course that he took. That was a Hebrew course that he did, and it took me weeks because he wrote it in Hebrew. I can speak Hebrew, but my accent and like the different words that were being used, it was challenging. So it took me a couple of weeks to practice that script. And then we recorded it, and it was not exactly a disaster, but it wasn't great. But my husband managed to take what we'd recorded and put it into a video that was 47 seconds long. Then that video got published to our neighborhood WhatsApp, which has, I want to say, like 2,000 people in it. So that's how big our neighborhood is. Now, you may not have a husband that is a marketing expert and a videographer. My husband is offering, if you guys need help, to help you guys. Obviously, I'll send you his information on the next slide. Even if you don't have someone that can help you or you don't want to pay right now to get help to do your marketing, you can still do it. You can video yourself on your phone. I think that the video is very helpful because when parents see something, they can connect to it. They can trust you. You build rapport with them that way. I started out, by the way, you should know, however you do it, you're marketing to mothers. The people who contact me, out of more than 50 families, only one has been the father, and all the rest have been mothers. And what we did on that video is we led with the pain point that we're solving. I said to them, as a mom, I can't, like, it just hurts me to see students suffering and struggling to be able to pass their test and trying to learn and not succeeding and losing their self-confidence. So I led with the pain point that I was trying to solve. And then I showed them how I can help them solve that problem I'm like, the problem is not your kid. The problem is the way they're being taught. Okay. And that's true. That's because what is happening in schools is not working. I don't understand how any kid can concentrate with 30 other kids in the classroom, sometimes yelling. It's so distracting. So the problem is not your kid. The problem is the method. I'm going to teach your kid in a way that is interesting. They're going to enjoy it. Research shows that their brain will remember more when they're curious. So that's what you guys could do. The video worked much better for me than in the past when I've used only text-based graphics. So Let me see if this will work. I tried to attach a video. Can you guys hear the audio on the video?
Yes, I think
Yes.
so.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'll just play this. It's 47 seconds, so you guys can get an idea of what I did, whether you do it yourself, just so you can understand how I got the students. Okay. בתור לראות ילדים מתוסכלים מללמוד אנגלית, נכשלים במבחנים ומאבדים את הביטחון בעצמם. כואב לי כי אני יודעת שהבעיה היא לא בתלמיד, אלא בצורה שבה מלמדים אותו. מחקרים הראו שלמידה מענה ומעניינת מעלה את רמת המוטיבציה ומשפרת את יכולות התשומת לב, הזיכרון וההבנה. גם לילד שלכם מגיע ליהנות ולהצליח. אני מלמדת אנגלית באופן אישי ושמה דגש על חוויה חברתית, מענה ומעניינת, שתשפר גם את האנגלית וגם את הביטחון העצמי של הילד. אני נותנת 50% הנחה לשיעור הראשון לזמן מוגבל. אז תשלחו הודעה כדי להבטיח לילד שלכם מקום לעתיד טוב יותר. All right, so that looked way better on the final production. The day that I recorded it, I did not sound like that. He recorded me saying it like 30 times because I could not get the sentences right. My point is, even if you do not have great Hebrew, even if you don't speak Hebrew at all, you can still memorize the script and you know what you're saying and say it and then edit it so it looks like you're somewhat coherent. Okay. Um, Okay, and you can edit if you want to do it yourself. I would recommend using CapCut, which is an app you can download onto your phone. I found that to be really user-friendly for myself. If you want help with it, this is my husband's phone number. He's offering anybody that wants. He said if you want to video it yourself and send him the stuff, the footage, he'll edit it for you and it will start at 450 shekels, just so you guys have an idea of what it would cost you if you wanted him to help you with it. So he would also give you the script. You can use the exact same script that I used. I'm not sure. I'm sure nobody is going to care where you live, but as long as it's, authentic, because parents can feel that. So that's that. All right. So let's say you put your ad out there, you have your schedule, you know what you're going to teach, you got your books. What are you going to do when the parents contact you? So this is what I do. I have a notebook, okay? I write everything down that they say when I talk to them. I need to find out what's the student's age, what's their approximate level of English, what area they want to focus on or they want the most help in, and what days and times work best for their lesson. After I get to that point in the conversation, I'll tell them, here are the times that I have available. Would you like to schedule for this week? Now, in the video, I told them there's going to be 50% off for the first period of time. I did a month. For the first month, anyone who called me to schedule got 50% off on their first lesson. And that really helped, I think, get those first few clients in the door. I got 7 students to schedule during the first week that I opened. So I told them when the moms called me after the video was published, I'm going to start next week so that I had time to kind of fill in and even create a group or two. So you ask them what days and times work for them and you schedule their lesson. Okay. And when when you hang up the phone with them, you will transfer everything. If you have a computer document as well that goes along with, I keep track of it also on my Excel of like a client. It's not really a CRM, but I use my Excel to keep track of some details about clients so I don't forget if I lose my book or something. And then I'll text them in confirmation about the student's lesson time that we agreed on and my address so that they'll know where to come. Okay. So then they might sometimes have questions. Usually parents will schedule right away like that. If they have questions, I will make sure that they understand even after they schedule the lesson before I hang up. I'm not going to be teaching your kid grammar as grammar, but they are going to learn grammar. Okay. Because you don't want your kid to be bored out of their mind. The whole point for me, if a student comes once or if they come 100 times, I want them to be curious. I want them to be excited, to know that they can learn, to know that it's possible for them. Because if I can get that in their brain, then you won't be able to stop them. They're going to learn on their own. There's so much online, but kids get stuck feeling like they can't do it. So that's my job, is to inspire them. I make sure the parents know we're going to do reading, writing, listening, and speaking in every lesson, but it's going to be fun. I give them a couple of examples. Sometimes we'll do, I made sushi with students. I had to learn how to do it because I didn't know. I got little kits to build robots from AliExpress for really cheap, and we did that. Not all of them work, but that's okay. The point is the process. We do science experiments. So, and then the thing that's sometimes challenging, if a parent wants a group for their child, they are so used to the school system that's categorizing kids by age that it's hard for them to comprehend how that's not the way I do it. Because um, for me, it's not about the age. It's about, do the kids work together well? Do they get along? Are they helping each other? Is somebody punching the other kid? That's not going to work. So I do it based, in fact, I find that having different ages in a group is more effective because the older one knows he's older. There's no competition. He's not trying to hit the younger kid. So he tries to help the younger kids, and that actually in turn helps him learn because teaching is the best way to learn. So sometimes parents have a hard time with that, and I don't really argue with them. If they will not accept it, I'm like, all right, that's fine. You know, let's go with the private lesson. If you don't want to have your kid in a group like that, that's fine. Some parents have been really willing to go with it, at least to try it, and it has worked pretty well in most of the cases. How do I deal with cancellations and no-shows? So at first I didn't have this policy and I got really frustrated because parents would call me and be like, "My kid is playing with his friend or he is sleeping and he doesn't want to come to class." And I was like, I could have scheduled someone and now you're telling me that he's just going to sleep and you're going to let him. So that's why I implemented this policy. Classes that are canceled at the last minute still have to be paid in full. And that has resulted in me having families who really respect my time. And they have some of the parents that I've ended up having to pay for a kid that didn't show up have been my most consistent, on time, appreciative parents, and the students value it more too, because then their parents explain to them, like, we've asked her to be available. She's got other students that she could have taken instead of you. You're going. I don't care if you want to. And then at the worst case scenario, if the parent doesn't respect your time enough to pay for it, even though they scheduled it and then didn't show up, then they might quit, which is also fine. And then you can have a parent that will respect you and you'll enjoy working with them. So that's what I do. Obviously, I do have exceptions if there's something extreme. I have one mom, her car broke down. Like, obviously, I'm not going to charge her for that. Your kid went to the hospital. That also happened this week. Be flexible, but if you can tell that they're just not being respectful of your time, you have to respect your time before anyone else will. All right. My very first lesson that I do with all my students, which they love, I need to get a better recipe for slime, but I do it and they still love it before they come into the lesson. Okay, they show up with their parent, they're a little shy, they like, here's a new person, and they're gonna speak to me in English. So I will explain to them, I'll go outside the house, I'll be like, okay, I'm gonna talk to you in this lesson only in English. And I know that that's gonna be scary, a little bit scary, because you're not gonna know what I'm saying. And I know that you don't know what I'm saying, and that's okay. I'm gonna use body language, you're gonna be okay. And anyways, I've learned Hebrew and I'm working on my Hebrew still, so I know how you feel. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to try and have fun, okay? So then they get that idea in their head. And I try to make sure they know it might be hard. I want them to think that it's going to be hard because I want them to be ready for being challenged. If they think it's going to be completely easy and it's going to be like, no big deal, then they're less likely to succeed. So they need to already know going in, it's going to be hard, but I can do it. So that's what I try to get in their head. I have the parents come in the class with them so that they can see, I have everything in here is really white. There's this big sign behind this big beach ocean scene behind me. There's a piano. I actually have a climbing wall now, so you don't have to have all that stuff, but just having them come in and be familiar with where their kid is going to be will make the parents feel better. And if the parent wants to stay or if the kid wants them to stay, I'm like, how about it? Here's a couch. You can be there and see if you want to come to every lesson. That's absolutely fine. So I think that's important to help the kid and the parent feel comfortable knowing where the kid's at, what's happening, if they're going to get something out of the lesson. Then after I get the parent in the class, the kids in the class, they're immediately going to put their phone on the desk. Most kids come with phones, even the ones that are like 6 or 7 years old. So that is really good to do on the very first lesson, the first thing when they walk in the room, when the parent is watching. You're going to put your phone on the desk face down. You're not going to touch it during the lesson. That way you don't have issues later on. Some kids that I have not been strict enough with that on, it turns into an issue. So it's better for you to be really hardcore about that from day one and don't give any room on it because the phones will be your enemy if you let them. Um, so we do slime. I pull out all the little stuff. Everything's in English. They're like, what in the world? We do it. It's fun. There's a recipe. And then I'll have them make sure that they help me clean up everything. This is so important on the first lesson to make sure that they take responsibility for their own learning. Because if you have like back-to-back lessons, it's going to be really difficult to get it all cleaned up and set for the next students unless your students are taking part in getting that process done. So, especially on the slime lesson, but even on any lesson at any day, it's still part of their learning. Like when I say to them, please take this bowl and go and put it in the sink and wash it. They're not going to understand a lot of the times, but you'll show them. They might take it to the sink and put it in and then not actually wash it. And then you say, come back over here, let me show you what I mean. And while they're in the process of washing it, you're asking them, what is this? Oh, it's a spoon. What's this? Oh, it's a bowl. And you just do repetition. It's all part of that. But they've got to take responsibility. And that is super important on the first lesson so that you're not like the slave. Everybody is doing this. You guys are having fun. I'm going out of my way to make it fun for you guys. And I need you to help me make sure that my house is kept orderly. So that's what I do. After they get the dishes all washed up, we come back to the table and then we're going to play the verb actions game that I made up, kind of like Simon Says. So you have a ball. Used a tennis ball. You can use any kind of ball that you want. It doesn't matter. So you start with, you hold it. The kids kind of stand up and push their chairs in. And I have a table that there's room where you can walk around it. And I say, okay, walk. They don't know what that means. So I start walking with big motions and I sort of say to them, go, go, walk, So they get the idea and they start doing it. Okay, now run. And then I start running and I say, oh, run, run. And I'm holding the ball and I'm running and then stop. So those are the three verbs that I start with. And I will repeat those three verbs multiple times until I think they've gotten in their head what is walk, run, and stop. Then I'll take the ball. If it's a one-on-one lesson, you just give it to them and you say to them, walk, run, stop. And they need to now decide what they're going to tell you. They're in charge. And kids like that a lot of the times. In groups, sometimes they'll be a little bit more shy, but a lot of time, most of them will want to do it. So you give a ball to one of them. If they can't remember how to say it, you tell them, they repeat back and you just start with that and they take turns. Then you add on to it. You start adding adverbs. Walk quickly, run, slowly, or in slow motion. You can add colors. So you'll do like touch something green, touch something blue, touch the floor. You can teach them objects. The name's touch a book. So this game is all about verbs and then adding on to it. If you happen to have some stuffed animals around your house from your kiddos or whatever, those are great props you can use because once you get them to where they know a lot of basic verbs, then you can start teaching them whole sentences through that game, like present progressive tense. So you'll say, run. And then while they're running, you say, what are you doing? So then they need to answer you, I am running. And then you add on, what am I doing? What are we doing? And then you can use the stuffed animals. If it's a little dog, what is he doing? And you have him run around the table. Two stuffed animals, what are they doing? So that game is really fun. I usually play it for about the first 3 months that they're with me. Eventually they get bored of it, but they really like it in the beginning and it gets them up and moving and it connects words to actions and it gets it somewhere somehow in their brain better. They remember it, they come back to the next class and they can say it. So I love that game. Also, I'll let them, their slime is still out on the table. So I'll let them be able to touch the slime, like touch the slime. You got to add that in, otherwise they're going to be trying to touch it. Anyway, so you might as well add it in. And then at the end of this whole lesson, I figured this out that slime is messy. Um, most parents didn't say anything about it, but you have to make sure the kids know and text the parents that the slime should not be getting on your blankets. Don't let it slip onto the couch, God forbid. Like it will ruin furniture if it gets on it. So I give them a plastic baggie, but I also text the parents, your kid made slime in class today. It was really fun. Make sure it doesn't get on any of your stuff. And I'm sure the parents eventually throw it away. I mean, maybe they do. But anyway, most of the time it's really fun, but it's just a good heads up to know that. All right, we're almost done. Thank you guys for holding with me. The next part is just a little bit of the technical logistics behind, you have all that in place. You're going to start. Now, how are you actually going to do it? Legally opening the business. So when I started my business, I did not know, I was very bad at reading Hebrew at that point. And so opening up all these accounts you need to do for legal purposes was tough. So I hired an accountant that I got a recommendation from a friend. I ended up paying about 1,200-ish the first year when I was just by myself for him to help me with all the stuff that he did, and including opening the business. So now I'm doing a joint account because my husband is also self-employed. So we pay a little bit more now. The account opened my Osek Patul. Now it's Osek Zaire. I'm not going to go into all of what that means, but I'll give you a resource that you guys can look into if you want. They dealt with Masa Khanasa, the tax office. I originally dealt with Bituach Leumi because I didn't have a Teudat Zut at the time. I'm married to an Israeli, and the accountant now handles my Bituach Leumi. So all the legal side of opening up the business, they opened for me. By the way, if you do open a business, like go through all these steps and you eventually stop, make sure that you get your accountant or you to close all of those accounts because that can be an issue if you have it. It doesn't automatically close. I used at the beginning YPay as my accounting software. Now I use iCount. iCount is a little bit more expensive. It costs me about 60 shekels a month, but it makes my life so much easier because, like I said before, you have to send a receipt after every single time you get money, cash or from an electronic means. And they have an app. It makes it so much easier for me. So I accept a payment on my Bit app, and then I immediately open the iCount app, and then send the receipt out right away. And it takes like a minute and a half to send a receipt that way without having to pull up my computer and everything. All right. And their interface in English is also good, and also on their app as well as on their website. So this right here is a group for entrepreneurs. It's specifically geared towards women. They have so much good information on there. Everybody that knows everything about their business will share with you for free who they recommend. If you want to get a recommendation for an accountant that lives near you, this would be a great place to go. If you want to find out about other maybe accounting softwares or maybe other types of booking platforms that you could use, any kind of questions you have about doing business in Israel, this would be a great place to go. And I get a lot of useful information from there. Okay, this is near the end, but it is super important. Parent communication. So I thought when I first started teaching that I was getting paid to teach English, and that's not actually completely true. I now think that I'm not getting paid to teach English. I'm getting paid to help the parent feel good about how they are helping their child through me. So what that means is that if you don't share with the parent what's going on in the lesson, how they're benefiting, how they're learning, they're not going to be able to feel good about it. So they're basically paying you and not getting the value that they're looking for. Parents care about their kids and they want them to do well, but if they don't get that reward of, wow, look what I helped my kid do this week, their value equation doesn't look very fair to them. So students are going to tell their parents some stuff. Some students will tell more than others. They'll go home raving and tell everything, and other students will just be like, "Oh, it was fine," you know. Not every student even takes home all the crafts. Some of them do, and they put them up all over their house, and others of them are like embarrassed to take them home. So it's so important. Every single lesson, every single student, you need to take some kind of a photo of the project that they did before they run out the door with it, if you can. After they leave, you can do a video of the books that they read, the pages just flipping through to show, because kids, like, the parent can't see that unless you show them, they're not going to know. If you don't have a video or a photo, sometimes I just do a general photo of the project that we did, and then I send that, even if it's not their particular project that that kid did. It's still helpful. Like it was something like this. Things that they succeeded at, things that they need more practice with. You've got to be, even if it's not a positive thing, if the kid didn't behave well in the class, you can say he had a really hard time behaving, he was hitting his friend, he was calling somebody names, or you can say, he read so well and I'm so proud of him. Like, look at all the stuff that he did. He's made so much progress. Whether it's positive or negative, you need to mention it because if you get to the point where, God forbid, you don't want to teach this kid anymore because they're driving you insane, you need it to be like not such a surprise to the parent. So you have to make sure, and they may be able to help you so you won't get to that point. So it's so important, one way or the other, send them some kind of feedback, let them know what's going on. Here's what they did for writing, reading, listening, speaking, and the lesson. And also I put groups for my parent groups because otherwise it's just a whole lot of work sending out messages one by one. I also use that to help me remember who came to the lesson if I somehow forget to do attendance another way, I'll go back and look at what I sent their parents. So that helps to have a backup of who when they came. Great books that I would recommend. This book right here, The Three R's. This book was really helpful, and this is where I got the idea that you will learn to write well by copying good writing. So my writing assignments a lot of the time is getting a book, whatever book we read that day, and just copying literally word for word exactly what it says. They're learning spelling, they're learning grammar, they're learning how to express themselves in a very good way, especially if you're choosing classics and really high quality books. So that book is really helpful just to give you a concept of how easy it can be to teach reading and a good way to do it. I love it. The Thomas Jefferson Education book was also really it really helped shape my way of thinking about education and about how to be excellent in education. Okay. By the way, those two books, I don't think you have to necessarily buy them right away, but they're still helpful to have in your library. You're not going to teach out of them. They're just like theoretical for you. These two books you do need to buy, I think, unless you have another like falling space curriculum for reading that you like more than the Teach Your Child to Read book here. This book has been super helpful. I would say go and buy it. I got mine on Amazon and there's a good exchange rate right now, so you guys can get it for cheaper. 365 science activities. That one I saves me so much time when I come to planning my lessons for what I'm going to do over the next 3 months. I flip through it, it tells you exactly what you're going to need. I read the book with the students because it's all written out how to do it. So once I decide which ones I'm doing for that, you know, quarter, then it's already all printed out and colorful with all the pictures and examples of how to do it. Super helpful. All right, books that you might want to have if you're starting out, if I was starting out again right now with no books, I would definitely want a few basics that are going to be really useful. These are the books that I would say have been the most useful to me. All these I've gotten off of Awesome Books except for the Bob's books, which I bought used from a friend. You might be able to get them there. That's the series. Um, which if even if it's not the same series, it just needs to be super simple little readers that you can get. Kids love finishing a booklet and feeling like they did, accomplish, oh my gosh, I finished the whole book. That's a really good feeling, you know. All right, so those are books you guys might want to look into. The last two, Endangered Animals and Extreme Animals, you could get those or something similar. It's just fun to have a book with a whole lot of options. Kids will look through it and be like, oh, that's a really gross animal. Let me read about that. And there are two different animals on each page. So it gives you a lot of options for reading material. Not unlimited, but still a whole lot of different options. And it's a higher level. I tried to put these from easiest to hardest in terms of level. Okay, supplies. What are you going to need if you don't have a whole arsenal of a classroom yet? I think the most important is the calm learning environment. It doesn't have to be immaculate, but does need to be tidy and inviting. You need to have at least some books in English. It doesn't have to be a ton, but you need something to start with. You need a phonics curriculum. You can use the one that I'm using or choose one that you like. I use colorful paper for writing assignments because it's just more fun. Why not? You also might want to have lined paper, just in case some students like to have the lines already on there. But for the most part, kids love to use colorful paper, pencils and erasers. I now have markers and all kinds of stuff, but in the beginning, you need to at least have that. These tracing pages or something similar, I downloaded them off of Canva, like I said before, and put them in protective sheets and got a binder. It doesn't cost too much to do that. If you don't have a printer at home, you can go to a printing center to get it printed out. A couple of balls would be helpful. That's good for the verb actions game, and you can also use them when you're starting to do counting with them. You hold the ball, you say zero, and throw it to them, and they have to count to 100. There are a lot of things you can do. A laundry basket or something empty to throw the ball into. I like to give them like if we're going over words that they're learning, um, just read like these 5 words and then throw the ball. It's just a fun thing to do. And then obviously, if you're going to do the baking lessons, you'll need to have the basics in your kitchen that you might need for any lesson, and specific supplies for the first month or two would be helpful before you even advertise so that you are ready to go and you're not going to be trying to figure out at the last minute what you're going to do. All right. And then questions. We did that on the live and some of the questions were, how old are the youngest kids? So I just have kids that are potty trained. In this setting in my house, 5 years old was the youngest that I had. But in another setting with music, I did it 3-year-olds that were, if they're not potty trained, it's a disaster. Don't do it. Okay. Other questions. Special education. What do I recommend for that? Do I need to modify the lesson? The only thing I can say is you would probably want to take them. I have some kids with ADHD, but I don't know like exactly what each particular situation is. It depends on the kid. You probably want them to be in a private lesson and not in a group. That's just my gut feeling on that. So I don't remember what all the questions were. So you guys, if you have more questions, type them down below and I'll try to answer you guys. Thank you so much for being a part, and I hope this has really been helpful to you guys.